Hi, everybody. I'm Kuldeep Nirola. I'm from Nepal. I'm a PhD candidate at the Carter School.
So my name is Sandra Tombe, and I'm a research graduate of the Carter School.
My name is Oakley Thomas Hill. I am a PhD student at the Carter School.
My name is Sarah Cobb. I'm faculty at the Carter School. I'm actually the Druscilla French Cumbie professor at the Carter School.
Through my PhD dissertation, I'm trying to understand how non-profit organizations working in the field of peace and conflict resolution seek to promote justice and peace through the use of documentaries.
I lived in Egypt, but I'm actually from South Sudan. The history of conflict in South Sudan, and that was the reason why there was a lot of movement happening in terms of my family moving from South Sudan. So I was born in the north of the country, so officially Sudan. And because of that conflict and just seeing how it affected everyone's lives in different ways and losing family because of that, I was interested in understanding how conflict affects societies and what tools can we think about in terms of how we might respond to conflict. So my dissertation was interested in investigating how opposition groups who have access to transnational representatives engage diaspora communities in domestic politics. And so I was interested in how transnational networks that opposition groups and diasporas create can shape domestic outcomes in countries that are experiencing violence and going through some major transitions.
I study the intersection of narrative and conflict. I'm from Utah, and the most important identity is whether you're Mormon or not. The topic of my current research has to do with deconversion and the conflict that occurs between people when someone leaves a high-cost faith community. Essentially what's going on is there's this mass exodus out of the Mormon church. How do we deal with that? Especially when that exit process is ridden with conflict and trauma and psychological harm, and if you're a Latter-day Saint, loss, and not even a normal kind of loss, like an ambiguous loss, like the person hasn't died, they're still there, but your relation with them is now fundamentally different than it was before they told you, hey, I'm leaving the church and I don't believe it's true, and I think you're part of a cult, by the way, right? That's a huge rift in your relationship. How do you deal with that?
I study the role of narrative or story in both how conflicts are formed, the role that stories play in the formation and the escalation of conflicts, as well as in their transformation. So I'm both on the story or narrative is related to both an analytic question of how do conflicts emerge, and if we understand how stories are formed and how they evolve, we get a very good analytic. It's a good analytic framework for understanding the dynamics of conflict. But I'm also working on the de-escalation or conflict resolution side, because narratives are malleable and can be transformed and evolved. And for that reason, if we know how that process of transformation works, we can design strategically for change that could lead to conflict resolution or to conflict reduction or de-escalation.
I'm based in South Bend, Indiana right now. In terms of work, I'm working with Motels for Now program for Our Lady of the Road. It's a transitional homeless shelter, it's a low barrier homeless shelter where we take people with addictions and mental health issues who are usually excluded from homeless shelters in the US. Carter School has provided us direct skill on restorative justice, where we discuss about how to implement restorative practices to deal with everyday conflict at the local level in the US, where we learned about the importance of empathy, listening, having a dialogue at the equal footing.
So I am Research Program Officer at United States Institute of Peace, and I work as part of the Learning, Evaluation, and Research team, where I support research across the institutes.
Our students are addressing very large, important issues in the field and in the world, and I'm just very, relieved. I feel like I can grow old, and which I'm doing, of course. Knowing that the world is in good hands. We're graduating people that are going to make a significant difference in the world across a variety of different areas.
I was very fortunate to get the French Cumbie Fellowship because it helped me with being able to purchase the tools I needed to analyze the survey data I collected. So I was able to ensure that I had Stata, for example, which is a statistical software that I use to be able to analyze my data. Another big support that this fellowship afforded me was just not having to worry about rent and just having some of my expenses taken care of. And I think without that support, it would have taken me a bit longer to finish the PhD program.
I've been lucky enough to receive some really good assistance while I've been here at the Carter School. The French and Cumbie Fellowship is going to be a huge deal for me this summer. It's the difference between having the ability to write a book and not writing a book, and having the ability to go to and from Utah, where I'm collecting data and doing research, and not collecting that data or doing the research. Right? It's that fellowship was make or break for this project, so that's been a huge help.
George Mason has been very gracious to always support me financially and also provide scholarships and fellowships whenever possible.
I'm just really delighted with the students' work, and I feel like my life as a teacher, I would say, as a professor, is just it's incredibly rewarding to have a ringside seat for these for the evolution and development of the students and the differences they're making in the world.